Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pivot and Prosper. This is a podcast where we speak with entrepreneurs, business owners, and C-suite executives in the marketing industry to hear their stories of growth with relentless perseverance. Today, I have the joy of introducing Josh Webb. He's a marketing leader for over 20 years now. He's now a fractional CMO from Atlanta, Georgia, and is the owner of The Breezy Company. They provide scalable marketing teams that specialize in storytelling and crafting a brand voice for startup businesses and beyond. Josh, thanks so much for joining me here today.
Hey, thanks for asking me to be here.
Absolutely. Now, before we kind of talked about this here, you kind of gave me several stories here, setbacks that you happened, but let's be honest, you told me it wasn't a setback. It was something that you turned into. You use relentless perseverance to keep piling through. And we'll get into that here. I want to kind of preface that first for everyone who's watching. But I mean, this story is fantastic. And I'm excited to ask questions and continue to learn more and share that value.
Awesome.
So the first question I have here for you, tell me about your current role and what problem your business solves and what you've created as that solution.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, you mentioned, I've been doing this for about 25 years, and interactive advertising, everything has changed a lot over the years. But what I've ended up being is a fractional CMO. And what my friend always says, like, why don't you just say part-time CMO? And I was like, because I don't work at Subway and we call ourselves fractional. And so, so the primary thing that I'm walking through is that I'm coming in and providing pretty high level strategy, something you would probably pay pretty high level for people that really they really can't afford to hire somebody full time. They can't afford to hire somebody 4 hours a week or something like that. So a lot of times I would come in, I choose the best clients I could work with for about 8 or so clients. And one pattern that we considered continually noticed was that there would be a large portion of their strategy that said, and here's where the organic content is. And that's things like what we're going to say on social media, what we're going to say on LinkedIn, what we're going to say through your blog posts or on your videos and things like that. And they would nod their head like they knew what they're talking about. And they say, we'll do this internally and we'll make sure everybody, and it was 6 months would go by and they hadn't provided us a thing. So we had to solve that problem. And when I went out looking, mostly what I found was Fiverr freelancers, or I found large PR companies. And neither of those solved their problems from a cash flow standpoint, or the ongoing engine that they needed to run the strategy that we put in place. And so my partner, Savannah, she did a lot of content. She used to be a project manager of mine. And I reached out to her and I said, I think there's an opening. Let's solve this problem for me. And so as a fractional CMO, every client that we had, when it came to content, we put together a really good repeatable process. And we said, okay, and now this team is going to handle the ongoing content that's never going to stop. This is how we're going to do it. And that grew to, I think we float between 40 and 50 clients now.
Wow.
And we're scalable. So I'm not scared when we have an influx or a white label client comes to us and says, hey, I got 20 clients for you. That does not scare me. We have 20 people ready to go.
That's great. And we talked earlier about that. It's a common area where agencies, businesses, the term agency, right? They commonly have that fall, right? Is they don't have enough people. They want to take on so many new clients. And then when it comes their way, they struggle, they don't have it, but it sounds like you've got it dialed in, which is great. It takes time to learn those pieces, right? As you mentioned, but hey, anyone comes to you, however many projects, how many folks, you're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, and what's good is that there are some things that we outsource that are like really easy, but one thing we learned, especially with content, is that we do not work with organizations or go to the loo or little weird things where you can tell that somebody's outsourcing out of the country. So all of our content creators are U.S. based, and we have very little tolerance for people that are just okay, and so they tend to leave, and we end up with the rock stars.
I love it. I love it. Really cool. Okay. So kind of pivoting from there, we talked about earlier too, there's so many podcasts out there that talk about the successes, the big wins. They don't talk about the hurdles, the milestones, and the unforeseen areas in business growth that no one's really talking about. So I'd like to kind of hear a few of those there. So what would you say has been the biggest surprise in operating your business in the last say 6 months or even a year, and how did you handle that surprise, and what did you learn from it, and what would you maybe do next time?
Good question. So I think one thing is you need to trust your gut, but also is that there's probably a piece inside that that's really true and really a real trigger, and you don't know what it is yet. And so it's kind of okay to be living in the I don't know land. And I think that's where, kind of treating everything as an agile process really, really is helpful. It's also helpful to not say, hey, we're going to go spend 100 grand on this campaign and we're going to guess a lot. Or even like, I used to do a lot of focus groups because, kind of like the Mad Men lipstick thing, like, and there's so many times that the loudest person wins in those kind of conversations, and they don't really want to be there and they kind of want to be rewarded. And so you can't even trust that. The only thing you can really trust is user behavior. And so it's really about having a hypothesis, going as far as you can to kind of an MVP, kind of like you would like an app or something like that. But the same thing with a story. It's the same thing with any kind of hypothesis. And then putting it out there and see what people do. And so that has been a surprise for me to, number one, my idea journal that has like 90,000 entries to kind of go, okay, I think this is worth pursuing. And then I'm going to put it out there. And then even know that when I put it out there and 10 people go, I wouldn't really use that. Well, then you have the Steve Jobs effect where everybody wants a smarter BlackBerry. And you have to go, okay, there's a piece of my gut that says keep going. Mm-hmm. But there's also something about this that didn't resonate.
Sure.
So that's that. I mean, I hate to say, test and confirm and keep trying. But the people I've seen, it's the fact that they didn't give up and they kept tweaking. And then, I don't know if you listen to Dave Ramsey at all. He's kind of a little personal hero of mine. But he said, it took me 20 years to become an overnight success. That is massively true.
I get it. I couldn't agree more. I think based off what you said there too, there are so many entrepreneurs, marketers, you name it, who are looking for, well, give me the black and white answer to what I'm thinking right here. And I was told years ago, and I laughed at it, but now I look at it and go, it was great advice. You'll figure it out. Trust your gut. You'll figure it out. Go through those steps, and as your mind continues to adapt and grows your web of knowledge and wisdom, etc., you'll be able to decipher through those decisions, and your gut will have a stronger, feedback to you, if you will. But how marketing's changing and storytelling aspects and how we're connecting with our audiences. Heck, as you just said right there, you could have made another BlackBerry, or you could have totally made a new innovative product, and well, that's risk, right?
Well,
and there's no book that said this is the right phone to make it this time, right?
No, I mean, I do think that you have to go a little bit with your gut, but then where people really mess up is, and I've seen this, is that I'm going to put all of my eggs in this one basket. I'm really thinking that I'm right here. I'm going to and then the problem is that it's slightly wrong, and they don't have any money. They've run out of money to continue. Mm-hmm. And so, there's a friend of mine. He used to be a CMO advisor for large companies. It's a pretty good stat that most CMOs only have about a 2-year lifespan. And that's because they have enough time to put their agency in place, get rid of everything the last CMO did, put their thing in place, deliver it. They don't really know how to report on it unless revenue just went up. And then they get fired and the next guy comes in. And that's a pretty good pattern.
Rinse and repeat. Yeah, I get it. Completely understood there. Okay. So with that then, what would you say are some key skills or bits of knowledge that are most important for the success in this industry in the next few years?
For me, it always comes back to two things. I think understanding your audience segments from a kind of a demographical and psychographical, mostly psychographical, because knowing that they live in a certain area doesn't always help. But understanding who they are and then becoming empathetic to the thing that the problem they're trying to solve. Understanding that they don't really care about your company. Sometimes people can become fanboys. They can come, Apple or Sony or something like that. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen very often. It's a pretty low percentage. Mostly, they just have some kind of problem they're trying to overcome, and then apparently you're promising that you're going to solve that problem. And so it's becoming the people that are extremely empathetic and really understand the story that they're trying to tell these people that they know really well. then it doesn't matter what medium you're telling it in. And it's one thing if the marketing knows it or the CEO knows it. It's another thing when it kind of permeates the entire company and it becomes the culture of the whole company, then it becomes really strong. And sometimes it happens, and sometimes it's a major change management problem. And it becomes beyond just the idea of what the story is. But at the center of it, it's what is the story, who are we talking to, and what's the story?
Yeah. I think you said a key thing right there too, of who they think they know their consumer, et cetera. And how much time have they spent, or any company, diving into, and this is what, we do as marketers, right? It's a key component. I want to know the other person on the other end, what the major pain problems I have, not only in this specific service or product that they're looking to purchase, but what else typically ties to that thought process where the copy that's written, that they're reading, that comes through, it sounds like this was meant for me. It's so dialed in, and it takes time. And there's so many companies, I think, that say, well, it's just this piece right here, go, go, go. Like, there's a lot of digging behind the scenes that take, for my company, it takes 30 days at least to do all the background checks, the workshops for brand voice, the avatar diving, all the above. It takes a while. It's
well,
crucial.
And larger companies will do, they do tons of research. There's entire companies. One of our clients that does this for big agencies, they do research and focus groups. But you can do it from a large end, especially if you're going to spend a lot of money. Or you can do it like, okay, I'm going to spend this much and I want to do it wisely. And so I'm going to start with what I know or what my salespeople know. They talk to these people every single day. And marketing is a little bit of stereotyping. Marketing doesn't get the advantage of what sales gets, which sales, they get to adapt based on what the person is saying. Oh, this is their particular problem. This is what kind of person they are. And if you're a good salesman, you adapt a little bit. Marketing can somewhat do that, but they kind of have to guess because they don't know exactly who's going to show up. So what I tell my clients is that we're going to focus on who the perfect customer is. The exact person you want to hire. So we're not going to guess who's all going to come and try to be, the one thing for everybody. But what's the umbrella that is really this one person? And then we try to nail it as close as we can. And there's going to be we recognize there's going to be lots of subgroups and things like that. But you start with one, and then you slowly tell the story to every single one. And you never have, they don't have to come to the homepage or always go through one particular funnel. You recognize the fact that if I'm going to reach this particular target in this industry, I'm going to go directly to them. And I'm going to tell the story to them, rather than having them guess if this is for me or not.
Sure. And then, of course, comes into split testing everything, right? Conversion rate optimization here and there. But eventually, with the right team, mindset, and strategy, you dial in closer and closer to the highest conversions you can get, hypothetically, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, some of it's science, but I hate to say that some of it's a lot of it's art. A lot of it is just knowing and understanding. That's a good way to word it.
I like that. It is art. It's crafty.
Yeah, we're artists. Thank you.
This kind of drives to my next question here, and we talked about this before, and I'm excited for you to share more about this journey that you've had. So think about a critical decision that you've made that was a turning point for you in your life, or your business specifically, but kind of tied in together. Talk about that critical decision.
Yeah, so I only knew the traditional agency model, and that's basically to go hunt down a client. I could say it nicer. Go find a relationship and try to meet their needs, as much money as they're willing to give you, because you can probably do a lot of things. And then do a big campaign, and so I did that for a long time, and I had my bids at agencies, and we would stay there till 2 a.m, and my wife just got used to the fact that I just wasn't home, and I might be managing 3 or 4 clients. And that becomes, it doesn't become a season, it becomes a regular thing. So I got one client we worked with American Cancer Society. I got pretty used to the idea of not selling a shoe or a ticket. I liked this idea of, we were selling something that mattered. And so we worked with them for a while. As a matter of fact, a lot of my coworkers went to go work for American Cancer Society. But what the path that I took was, I was going to try to work on telling the story of just nonprofits in general. We started an agency called Root Radius, and ended up building to where I guess we had about 10 people. It was a pretty boutique agency. We only worked with nonprofits, and some of them were pretty large, but we were primarily working on, okay, what is the story that you're telling to your donors? And then we would create the materials that did that. Now, that was before StoryBrand, and it's very similar to StoryBrand, which is a framework that I work with now. But the reason I bring up that agency is that it still was a traditional agency model, and we were constantly chasing down new clients and constantly trying to produce the last work that we promised, which was money that we already spent to pay for all of our salaries, and it was exhausting.
Yeah.
It was exhausting, and sometimes we would do the work that we really wanted to do, but most of the time we were hurrying so fast that it was just in time to do the next one.
Yeah.
And so why agencies run that problem, even with to just have more zeros behind it as they get bigger, the problem doesn't change. And so in about it took about 5 years to build up to that agency, and it really was a good agency. We had to work with a lot of good people, but it took about 5 months for us to go under. And it's a long story, but basically one of our just ended up having, like, his wife got pregnant early, like really early, and he was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to go and be with her. I don't know how much I can work. And a really great employer would say, oh, no problem. We'll completely cover you. Well, we were still a small agency, and so that was like a big deal. And he was like working on 3 accounts, stuff like that. And so we ended up hiring vendors and all this kind of stuff. And we went through our emergency fund. We went through our bridge loan. We didn't take any kind of salaries. Gone in 5 months. So we now refer to it as the single point of failure, in which we thought we were growing, but we weren't. We were basically holding in the walls until we collapsed.
Yeah. Everyone thinks it's they see the glorious side, like I mentioned before, but these things happen to most companies, and a mentor told me it's not businesses that fail, it's people that fail. So how you adapted to that situation, and how 20 different other people, let's say, but it sounds like, which I resonate with, you really care about the people that are doing work with you.
I really cared about them, and sometimes your ability to care about somebody, it's overshadowed by your ability to care for them. So it was more like we were more exhausted, and we slowly allowed the people. Matter of fact, 2 of the main people that I went on, they went on to form South End, which is a video agency, and it's amazing. It's really, really good. And they met at our agency, and we had a really close fellowship. I'm still really close to those guys. So we managed to end that agency in. Yes, we were exhausted and probably didn't want to talk to each other for a little while. We're all friends. We still reach out to each other. So I think that's a really good thing. It really could have ended like where everybody hated each other. But the primary thing for me, even though, when you lose a business like that, first of all, I think a lot of people don't want to admit it. They go right into like, well, I'm a consultant now, and blah, 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 and I didn't want to do that agency thing. No, it was it was a 5-year success followed by a very quick failure. And I don't know what I thought I was going to do, like give it to my kids or something. I don't know. But what it caused me to do is to realize that, okay, me personally, I don't personally have the energy to be, I had clients that would call me in their spot and they're like, okay, I have this guy and this guy. And I'm just like, I'm tired already. How I don't know how you maintain that energy. To keep hunting people down. So we basically committed to, after I healed for a while, because, I had to lick my wounds, and I,
Sure.
I call it torch time, where I was just like, the primary thing with that is that, after being able to heal, I unfortunately have the personal character where it's like I have a very hard time working for people. I'm a builder and I'm a visionary and I got to do those things, and it drives my wife crazy.
I'm an artist.
I'm an artist.
That's right.
No, I'm not. I'm not a real artist. I'm not. But I have a very hard time not building something, and so I ended up having a lot of startups. We have a startup community here. They came to me and said, we're looking for, we can't do a full CMO role, but we're looking for a part-time CMO. a role. And then there were also existing companies. And so I ended up building a little niche where for a while I was doing these fractional CMO roles, knowing that was probably a season 2. And,
Great.
when we start something, I'm going to do it different. I'm going to commit to doing it different than I did the traditional agency.
Perfect. Well said. Well said. Well, that ties right into my next question here. If you would have chosen differently, where do you think you and your business would be today?
Non-existent, honestly. I would be doing personal CMO work, and it paid very well. So it's a case where a friend of mine calls it a lifestyle business, where you just pay for the lifestyle you want. And I think that's where I was leaning. I did have a little bit of personal guilt of seeing all this opportunity that I could invest in, but overall, just consulting, having people build the things I was working on. Sometimes I would do a little, like extreme home makeover, and I would just like take the website, or I would take the video, or just because I like to do it. But I could have done it for a long time, and I think I probably, but I think you do have to ask the question of, when I'm 60 or something, do I still want to be working for 9 bosses? No.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't know many people that do, but hey, that's all right.
Well,
Um,
and what they're thinking in their head is, I'm going to build this big company. It's going to be, and then I'm going to sell it. But I mean, anything is based on a service where people have to think. I mean, you got like a 5-year earn out at least. They're probably going to change. It's going to be very difficult for you. A friend of mine sold his agency to a bigger agency, and he had to stay there for 5 years or so. And I mean, they just slowly destroyed it as he was there. And it's very hard to watch, and it's very hard to be part of. And the likelihood you're going to be able to sell that like a Facebook or something like that, it's just very low. So you have to start thinking differently, especially now in the environment we're in, about how can I provide the same value in a different model.
yes, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And we were also talking too earlier about, which piggybacks into my next question about, the future of what that holds, and how we as marketers can properly storytell and get maybe the emotional feel reaction that we're looking for, or we don't know exists, or just to tie people to a brand, and so that way they can go through that journey. So what would you say are some predictions for the future in this industry, and how would you say you and your team are planning to stay ahead of the curve?
I mean, first of all, good question. It's always a good question to ask ourselves, because things change so often. And so I think having the mentality, I try to remind myself when I remember when somebody first told me about YouTube, I actually said out loud, who would upload a video to the internet? So I try to remind myself that I said that, because then I remind myself I'm just wrong a lot of the time. I have an assumption, and it's based on a lot of stuff, and I'm just wrong. And so having to combine my personal gut with actual either data or user behavior, I think is really important. What I'm finding is this next generation is all about authenticity, or at least they think they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not about becoming an influencer, but I think it is about realizing that I can be an influencer for the people that are perfect for me. So it doesn't mean that I have to have followers of 100,000, or start getting sponsored or something, but it does mean that I can start building trust with a select few people that are very niche, that I provide so much value to. Why would they ever turn to anyone else? And so that's what we focus on. The actual channels change constantly. I think a lot of our B2B customers are surprised when we tell them that TikTok actually is become a new search engine, and that's where they're not going to Google necessarily. I mean, maybe accidentally, but they're ending up on TikTok, and it's not kids dancing anymore. It's people explaining a concept that's a challenge for them that they actually have a problem with, and that's where they're following people. And so we do those kind of things. What will be able to change is, how is AI changing everything? Does it can we keep to the core of the story and featuring their expertise, even though the channels keep changing? And I think one way you can look at that is movies and television and stuff like that. It's the same challenge they're going through. And when they stick to the core of we're telling an amazing story. When they stick to the core of that, that's when it doesn't matter if it's a series or it's released one at a time or if it's in the movie theater. People are going to go seek out an awesome story. And so that's what we try to do. And I truly believe that. I even worked with a customer the other day that was selling something that was so commoditized. I mean, they were just like, oh no, we're the cheaper one. And I was telling them, I was like, yeah, but if you're the cheaper one that costs the same as somebody else, matter of fact, they're a little bit cheaper, but you resonate with them better, they're going to choose you. So don't make it about price. Otherwise, you'll just be the cheapest one on the shelf.
That's right. I couldn't agree more. I'm a big fan of motivation. I think it's the resonating aspect of business owners, entrepreneurs that are getting started. There's setbacks that come. Some are minor, some are huge issues, but the people who have relentless perseverance and continue to drive to that goal, that milestone that they want, whether you're hitting your head against the wall, being like, come on, let's make this work. Your story resonated with me in a sense that a completely different situation, but you didn't give up. You had a setback, and you said, I'm not going to let this deter me from where I'm looking to go on my roadmap.
Okay. Yeah. So here's what I would say about relentless. I think a lot of people know what they think they want. And when they're striving for it, I think that there is an assumption that if I get to the top of something, I achieve that thing. There is a such thing as goal depression. And I remember I got really big into CrossFit maybe 4 years ago, and you wouldn't know it to look at me now, but I lost like 40 pounds, and I was just like, I could do the pull-ups. I did one slot, but I was really big into it. But when I finally reached my goal, I was I wasn't happy about it. I kind of went into a little depression because I was like, what now? And of course, my coach would go, well, let's lose another 10 pounds. I'm like, well, here, I say that because of a transition that I went through. I've been doing the fractional CMO work for, I think about 3 or 4 years at this point. More money than I ever had in an agency, which is funny. But I went to go. I knew it was I knew it was out of nowhere because I just bought an Expedition, and I went to go get a tow trailer on it. And my doctor had called me because I was having trouble with my eyesight. I hadn't been to the doctor in like 6 years, and I was having trouble with my eyesight. And he said, I remember his quote, "I'm not saying there's anything going on in your head, but just go get an MRI just in case." So I went and got an MRI, and he gave me a call back, and he goes, Are you sitting down? I think I hear the car. Are you driving? And I go, yeah, I'm driving. He goes, why don't you pull over to the side of the road? And he said, okay, when your MRI came back, it showed a 3.5 centimeter brain tumor that's pushing against your brain stem. And if we don't get it out in probably 30 days or so, you're probably going to have a stroke. I probably went into shock because I said, so what do we do? And he goes, well, when it's that big, we can't shrink it with radiation or something. We have to go into your head and we have to take it out. So I said, is that a brain surgery? And he goes, well, what we're seeing is not cancerous, which was amazing. But it was called acoustic neuroma. It was growing out of my ear. It had been growing for 10 years. So if you're the kind of person that believes in faith or what God's doing in your life, I think about all the problems I had for 10 years. Well, I had a growing brain tumor in my head, and I didn't know it. But he said, yeah, we're going to have, it's more like adjacent brain surgery. And so we had 8-hour brain surgery, and I lost my hearing, which I'm a musician too. So that was kind of a big deal. Lost my hearing. And then it turns out that the tumor was attached to all the nerves in my face. And so they were just skillfully going through and detaching, and and what it left with was kind of like having a stroke, where it was completely numb from here all the way down to my right arm. And over time, it's been about 3 years or so, I've gotten back probably 80%. But if you hear any lisping, it's because 20% of my mouth is paralyzed. I'm blind in my right eye, and I'm deaf in my right ear, and I can't feel the right hemisphere of my head. So here's, I say all that to say, what do you do when the goal that you had is not even interrupt? It's almost like that's not a goal anymore. And so what do you do? I mean, because I had to recover for about a year and a half, and you don't know love until your wife gives you a non-romantic shower. So it was kind of humiliating. I couldn't really talk for a long time. I had to do lots of rehab. I still to this day can't really play guitar like I used to. And I was used to looking smart for a living. Am I going to trust this guy with the money that I'm giving, and he's going to tell me what to do? Well, I look kind of stupid. And so, how do you get past that? And so I say all that, not to make your podcast longer. I say all that to say that when you say you have perseverance to meet your goal, it's more of like perseverance to keep living.
Wow.
When things like that happen.
That's deep.
And then deciding there's hard questions you're going to ask yourself when you go through a major thing like that. I listened to another podcast called Nothing is Wasted. And there's a whole thing about a gymnast. He was an Olympic gymnast and did a major trick, landed on his neck, paralyzed from the neck down. What do you do? Is the goal to be a gymnast when I am paralyzed from the neck down? Or is it to say, no, this is who I am now? What's really important to me, or maybe even really important to, why I'm here.
Yeah. Well, Josh, I thank you for sharing. And the word powerful isn't the right one. I don't know how many other, I had to pull out a thesaurus to see what else other words I could use beyond that, but that's very motivating to hear, and it puts everything in different perspective, honestly. So I really appreciate you sharing that, and I'm glad that you're here to talk with us about it. I got one last question here based on all of this together to kind of wrap it up. Let's say you've got the opportunity to mentor a young entrepreneur and you could give them one piece of advice in their journey. What single piece of advice would that be, and why?
I think the first thing I would say to them, just looking at all the motivations I had, is that try to understand why you're working. And I think it brings up a lot of important philosophical questions for yourself. But I think in the end, when you realize either I'm working for my family or I'm working to sustain, a lot of the ideas that you have, it actually becomes a little less important that they all work exactly like you want them to. It's almost like a little football game. It's important, but it's a game. And so, investing is a game, and money is a game. And yeah, it's really important. But, when you're dead, it doesn't go with you. And so it's a case where knowing where you're going and knowing that that path's probably going to change and it's okay, and just becoming really nimble. I would also tell them to, I used to give the title, but I used to call it passion vomit, where founders would come to me and they would just vomit everything, every thought they've ever had on me, and I was supposed to put it back together. And that's what I would recommend to a younger entrepreneur is like, try to understand who you're serving and then how you're the guide to help them kind of succeed at the thing they're wanting, whether it's everything from I'm hungry and this is going to help me give me a snack, all the way to I have a major business problem and somehow I'm supposed to afford how to solve this problem when I'm really busy. They're massively different people. And I think when you start solving problems for people rather than trying to build a big business and, sell it, I mean, those are cool, important things. But it's weird that as soon as I stopped caring as much what the actual result was and started caring more for the people that I was serving, I did better. And I took Fridays off.
Amazing words of wisdom by Mr. Josh Webb. I can't thank you enough for your time and sharing storytelling, right? To me and to everyone who's listening and watching, truly appreciate it. The educational component behind what you have and the storytelling aspect is fantastic. And I think the more you can share on that and the more education, the better. So I'm going to put the link to your website, how to get hold of Josh if you're interested in his services, and to catch up with his business, see how he's doing, and his LinkedIn URL as well, too. So again, thank you so much for your time, Josh. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
Thanks a lot. I'll give you another resource too that you can look at. If you go to successinsuffering.life,
Okay.
I tried to write as many thoughts as I had, and it ended up only being this big. So it's a pretty digestible book, but all the proceeds go to helpingoneguy.org, which helps people going through life-changing crisis.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. We'll put the link down below as well for everyone to click on that. Again, Josh, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate us talking and having this discussion here today, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
All right, thanks a lot.